Daniel woke before sunrise, staring at the cracked ceiling of his room as morning light crept across the plaster. Today was supposed to be the turning point of his life. He ironed his only dress shirt again and again, willing the wrinkles away. His mother stood in the kitchen doorway as he prepared to leave, her smile hopeful yet tired. He promised her he'd do his best. Outside, the air was crisp and sharp, the city slowly waking. Cars rolled lazily through intersections, and people in suits hurried from buses. Daniel blended into the flow, heart thumping with a mixture of nerves and excitement. Collins Global rose ahead like a fortress of glass and steel, a place he had spent months dreaming about. He paused at the crosswalk, staring up at it, imagining himself walking its halls as an employee instead of an outsider. Then a sudden gasp behind him shattered the moment. A young girl stumbled into view, her ankle buckling beneath her. Her backpack was open, its contents scattered across the sidewalk. Daniel glanced at the building, then at the girl's trembling hands. Instinct overpowered ambition. He rushed toward her, kneeling beside her as she tried to regain balance. She winced with each attempt to stand. The panic in her eyes was unmistakable. "I need to get inside," she murmured, pointing weakly toward Collins Global. Daniel offered his shoulder, helping her hobble forward. Her steps were slow, and time slipped between them like sand. When she nearly collapsed again, he picked her up without hesitation. People turned, watching them, some curious, others indifferent. Daniel carried her across the street, ignoring how his heart hammered at the thought of the minutes slipping away. In the lobby, he set her down gently. She apologized breathlessly, but he only offered a small smile. "Take care," he said before sprinting toward the stairs. By the time he reached the interview floor, he already felt dread tightening in his stomach. He didn't know it yet, but the girl he helped was far from ordinary, and as the elevator carried her upward, her actions had already begun unraveling everything he thought he had lost. Daniel's shoes squeaked against the polished floor as he rushed toward the reception desk. His lungs burned from running up the stairs, and he tried to steady his breathing, smoothing his shirt and willing himself to look composed. The receptionist barely glanced up before her expression shifted into something politely dismissive. "Name?" she asked, fingers already poised over her keyboard. "Daniel Hayes," he said quickly. "I'm here for the final interview." Her eyes flicked to the screen. "Mr. Hayes, you were scheduled 15 minutes ago." Daniel's pulse quickened. "I know. I'm terribly sorry. There was a girl outside, she was hurt. I helped her get inside. I couldn't just leave her there." The receptionist frowned, clearly unimpressed. "The panel is very strict about timing. They've moved on to the next candidate." The words landed like a punch. "Please," Daniel said, trying not to sound desperate. "If you could just tell them what happened." "They've already left the floor," she said, not unkindly, but firmly, as if reading from policy etched into stone. Daniel stood frozen for a moment. The world around him seemed to fade to a dull hum. He managed a faint thank you, though the word tasted bitter, then turned to walk back toward the elevator. People passed him without noticing the way his shoulders sagged. He reached the ground floor with a hollow chest, stepping outside into the sunlight that suddenly felt too bright. He leaned against a pillar and stared at the building's gleaming surface. His phone buzzed with a message from his mother. He didn't open it. A lump formed in his throat, the kind he couldn't swallow away. He told himself he would keep moving, keep trying, but in that moment, he felt the weight of failure press down hard. What he didn't know was that several floors above, the girl he'd helped was limping into her father's office, trying to explain the chaos she had unknowingly caused. Emily entered her father's office without knocking, her injured ankle dragging slightly. "Mr. Collins looked up from his desk, startled to see his daughter flushed and out of breath. "Emily, what happened to your leg?" he asked, crossing the room immediately. "It's fine for now," she said, sinking into a nearby chair. "Something happened downstairs. I need to tell you before it gets worse." She told him everything. How she'd slipped while rushing, how a stranger had helped her without hesitation, how he carried her when she couldn't walk. "He didn't even ask who I was," she said quietly. "He was in a hurry. I'm sure he had an interview here. And he missed it because of me." Her voice trembled with guilt. "Mr. Collins listened attentively, his brows knitting together. "What was his name?" "I didn't get it," she admitted, frustrated with herself. He just kept making sure I was okay. Mr. Collins pressed a button on his desk phone. Get someone from HR in here immediately. When the HR manager arrived, Emily sat up straighter. Was there a candidate who arrived late? A young man, she asked. The manager nodded. Yes, Daniel Hayes. He was removed from consideration for lateness. Emily's heart dropped. Dad, that's him. You can't let that happen. He was kind. He didn't deserve this. Her father studied her with a mixture of concern and contemplation. Finally, he stood. Where is he now? He left about 10 minutes ago, Auer replied. Emily pushed herself up again despite the pain shooting through her ankle. We need to find him, she insisted. Please, Mr. Collins looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Let's go. The three of them hurried to the lobby. Emily scanned the street through the glass doors, hoping the stranger who had carried her hadn't gone far. Somewhere down the block, Daniel shuffled forward, unaware that his morning was far from oven. Daniel sat at a cafe's outdoor table, staring at his untouched cup of water. He replayed the entire morning in his head, wondering how something so small could devastate something so big. A job wasn't just a job to him. It was the first step toward lifting his family out of endless worry. His mother's messages buzzed on his phone, but he couldn't bring himself to answer. Not yet. He walked aimlessly down the street, blending with crowds that didn't know he'd just watched his future collapse. Meanwhile, a sleek black car rolled slowly along the curb outside Collins Global. Emily leaned forward in her seat, peering out of every window. He has to be around here somewhere, she murmured. We'll find him, her father assured her. She spotted a figure crossing a side street. Shoulders down, slow steps, the same dark shirt. Her heart jumped. Stop the car. That's him. The vehicle halted. Emily didn't wait. She pushed the door open and half ran, half limped onto the sidewalk. Daniel, she called. He turned, startled. Recognition flickered in his eyes. Are you all right? He asked. Emily nodded. Because of you. But listen, you need to come with us. You didn't just help me this morning. You lost something because of it. Daniel blinked, unsure what she meant. Then Mr. Collins stepped out of the car. The CEO of the company he had dreamed of joining. Daniel's breath hitched. Mr. Collins extended a hand. His expression was serious, but not unkind. I believe we have something important to discuss. And for the first time since that morning began, Daniel felt a faint spark of hope flicker back to life.